Welcome to David and David on Real Estate. Join us as we explore the ins and outs of the real estate market.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the David and David podcast. Always on real estate issues. But today we don't have David here. We've elevated the bar and we got Sabiha Ali here, broker of record at Sutton Summit. David's away this week, and Sabiha has done a few of these before, and it's always a delight to have you co-host with me on this today, Sabiha.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning, David. It is always a pleasure to be here. David is enjoying the sun and the waves in Mexico, and we're here in a slightly gloomier day today. But an exciting week it has been last week in real estate. Lots of new things coming up. Today's topic we've chosen as pre-construction. It has been a slower period for pre-construction. It's a funny animal. I think builders dance to the music of whatever is happening in the market presently, even though it's always speculated. It's always for what is going to come in the future. We've seen builders that have cooperated very well with realtors, and then there's been periods where builders have decided that they're going to work directly with individuals that are purchasing the purchasers just because of the demand. We have seen, lotteries for builders where we put in worksheets for clients, or the clients will put in the worksheets, and they may or may not get a unit. They may or may not get a parking. They may or may not get, a locker. So things were a little different. Last 6 months, the builders were going after clients and prospective purchasers. And last week, we saw something different, actually, David. We had an opportunity to go in and be part of a VIP event in Oakville. It was not even downtown Toronto. It was in Oakville on Dundas, which is basically used to be rural Oakville. And very close to the new hospital. Tons and tons of new construction coming on, low rises, condominiums. And our realtors were lined up from 7 o'clock in the morning, believe it or not, when the presentation office was opening at 11. And actually, a very few of them got the units for their clients that they wanted. So it seems to be, a changing trend all over. We've seen that in resale in the last a month and a half, and now in pre-construction.
Yeah, well, let's break it down a little bit more. Like, we're now in the middle of April. So in any year, the market's usually ramping up, right? We're now into the spring. We got the April showers happening. We had some beautiful weather last week. The place is greening up. People are getting out. People are getting back to a real estate market after it's always quieter in the winter months. December, January, February, generally quieter, and it starts to get busier. March, April, you start to see a lot more activity. So aside from pre-construction, just, Sabiha, I know you got your thumb on this all the time. Have you been sensing that? Like, has the market really improved from your end, and now that we're in April?
Absolutely, David. And this year it has a few more nuances attached to it, right? Having said, with we've done a couple of webinars where you've enlightened my brokerage and whoever logs in and listens to the YouTube channel that we have for Sutton Summit. We've talked about the foreign investors ban. We've talked about a few things that came in. January was when they were all solidified and the changes came in. And now there's few amendments that we're seeing. Government is backtracking on all of that. Interest rate hikes. I think in my lifetime of purchasing, I've never seen in such a short period of time so many hikes back to back to back. All of that put the whole market of last year, 2020, into sort of a freeze. Nobody knew. We had all deer eyes, right? We weren't sure as to what was happening.
Right.
But one thing I was certain about, and I think you were certain about, and anybody who's been around long enough on this planet and in this province and in the city has known that it's going to bounce back. Doesn't matter how we try to slow down the market. And I know it was abnormally fast growth in 2021. 30, 35, 36, 37% increase year to date is not sustainable, right? It had become unaffordable. People were not able to get homes for themselves to live in. So all of these things were put in place, but how long were people supposed to wait on, right? They were just waiting for one little indication and jump into the market. So buyers did that when the first interest rate rise did not come in. Then on the 12th, they announced another one. That did not occur. So buyers were already fatigued. They were waiting for too long and they have started jumping in. And now what is happening, David, throughout the brokerage, we are seeing every property that was actually maybe even a worrying listing for the last 3 months for our realtors has gotten so much traffic, in the last 2 weeks. Multiple offers, 20, 30 offers, because the sellers are always delayed. The buyers always faster in the market. And the delayed reaction from the sellers is inventory still very, very short. So all of these little changes, the buyers have said, you know what, we're back in the market, we're back in the saddle, we've waited for a whole year, nothing's going to change. That crash that we were waiting for is not going to happen.
Right.
Right?
Right. And I think you're bang on with your analysis from what I can tell from my point of view, because like you've referred to it as a freeze. I always have been calling it a pause, because when you talk to buyers and sellers, potential buyers and sellers over the last 9 months or so, like there's a lot of people that want to buy and want to sell and want to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
People, empty nesters are wanting to sell, to go to a house, to go to a condo, or to downsize, and you got people going the other way trying to buy their first home, people that are in their first home trying to buy their second home. So there's a lot of people that want to make changes. They were just in this freeze or pause because of the uncertainty of the market. And I agree with you, like, in a relatively short period of time, we saw these interest rate hikes. But when David and I, did a podcast, I think it was last August, September, with an economist, and he was breaking it down for us. What he was telling us back then is we're not in the normal market yet in terms of interest rates. He said normally interest rates should be, in a good market, in a good functioning economy, good functioning real estate market, interest rates should be somewhere between 4% and 8%. And
Which they are
occasionally
right
it
now.
might go a little bit higher than 8, and occasionally it might go a little bit lower than 4, but most of the time it's going to be in that range, right? And it's got to stay in there, because people are just investing, they want to get a return on their money. So they want to get, 5% return, 8% return on their money. When the interest rates were low at 2%, that's not a good functioning market. But we were in that for such a long period of time with these low interest rates. So that was really the abnormal market. Okay. But people that bought their first house in that abnormal market, or refinanced a house in that abnormal market, those low rates, it's hard to go from 2% to 5%, right?
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
it just seems like it's so expensive, and it's sort of waiting, is it going to come back down? But there's no chance it's coming back down. It's going to settle somewhere in the 4%, 8% range, because that's where it should be. So yes, I agree with you. There's all these increases, because they're not going to increase it in one step to go from 2% to 4%. They're going to do it gradually every month, every couple months, to get it up to where the levels where we're currently at. Okay. And will it go higher? Maybe it might go a little bit higher, but then it might come down again. But it's going to be settling somewhere close to where we are. So I think now you've got people, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, lawyers like me, explaining that to buyers. And now they're starting to accept this. Okay, if this is where it's going to be, let's do the math. What can I afford? Let's figure out what I can afford, and let's get back out there and buy something that I can afford. So I'm hoping that the pause is, or the freeze, as you rephrase it, is sort of now over, because we're certainly feeling it at our end. Like, we're actually closing more transactions in our office in April this year, 2023, than we did in 2022. Okay. So, and I try and look at all the time, is that a function of an improved market, or is it a function of, we got the word out, people like to use our services? It's probably a combination of both, because when I talk to some other lawyers, they're below last year's levels, but we're certainly seeing signs of a really improved market, like we should be seeing, because people are now saying, okay, this is the norm. Sabiha, if this is where it's going to be, help me do the math. What can I go out and buy right now?
Absolutely. And David, when you say that other lawyers are not seeing it, I mean, you've been, there's a lot of things that are in play, right? You've been around for so long. You have the word around. There's so many. I mean, ours is, I know, just one of the brokerages that totally blindfoldedly will follow you guys because, of the caliber of service you provide. And then now, David, you've taken a completely different role. You've actually become a guide and a teacher in so many people's views, right? So it's
Yep.
not just, we don't approach you for the aspect of giving you business as a partner. We approach you because as a guide to us. Whatever's happening, you really have the pulse of it. You've really become an educator over the last 2 or 3 years. I think we've all kind of moved from what we used to do and gotten into something else, which is really giving back. And I think, COVID has a lot to do with it, because we all had a moment to sit back and think, how can we stay connected? How can we, and this is what I tell my realtors all the time, like, this is actually, out of a really terrible thing has come out something which is, us as humans have developed in a different way, right? Real estate, it has affected as well, because so many people are working from home. Places like Collingwood and, much further, Chatham, places like that have gotten so much, there's people that are moving there now because of the fact that people are working from home. And when they're working from home, they have a little bit more time to give to others. Now I have this time where I'm not commuting back and forth, and I can give to others. So your brokerage, obviously, and I know that your firm, and I know the other firms will follow suit as it starts spreading. We were talking about real estate and housing in Hamilton, and one of my realtors has a listing over $1 million. And this was the conversation I was having with her, that it's slowly, the buyer confidence is coming back.
Right.
It'll take time. It's easier to sell an $800,000 home, then it'll be a $900,000, and they will come to 1.2. It will happen. It's just going to take some time. And David, we have to see, right? Like, even at 5 or 5.6% rate, you have had a market which goes 10% increase on an average year to year, right? I'm
On
not talking
prices.
every year.
On
Prices
prices. Yeah.
increase is 10%, right?
Right.
If you're looking at it over a period of 10 years, you're doubling the value of your property, right?
Right.
And it's on borrowed money. Only 20% is the individual's own investment. 80% is the bank's money that you're paying, maybe 5% on a very high time, right? But even on the 5%, you're making another 5% on money that's borrowed money. That is better than any other investment that you can possibly think of.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially in the GTA. And I don't know how many times I've said that on one of these podcasts, but the GTA is so bulletproof. Even in the worst market, the values are going to hold, because so many people just want to be in the GTA. And now there's a lot more pressure on builders to build more, to get more construction up, because we're going to increase the density within the GTA, and we're expanding the borders a little bit too. But people want to be here. So as long as people want to live here and there's such a demand, then the prices are never going to come down. There's never going to be this really big fall off here. The other thing that the next factor that we sort of have to look out for in the market, I think right now, is that there still isn't enough inventory on the market. There aren't enough sellers ready yet to sell their properties. So like you said, Sabiha, when a property does come up right now, there's still multi-offers on a lot of properties because people are sort of trolling a neighborhood waiting for a property to pop up. And when it does, all of a sudden there's 5 people, there's 10 people that are interested because there's only that one or there's 2. Eventually we're going to get back to a little bit more, hopefully of an inventory. That's what we really need in the market, more sellers out there. And then we're back into a more conventional market where, you're putting in an offer, you're negotiating, you can do the conditions, and you're not really worried as much about competing offers. You might get 1, you might get 2, but you're not going to get this, there's 8, 10, 12 offers coming in. And so everybody, don't put any conditions in, don't do an inspection. We're gonna gradually get out of that as soon as the more sellers have confidence and get out there.
David, the problem with that is that statistically, inventory is lower. There are more buyers than there are sellers, right? There's just lack of housing, period. And this is where pre-construction comes in play, or developers come in play. There is a lot of land that is already purchased by developers, but they are also smart. They hold on to that land, waiting for the prices to go up, right? So I mean, we will always in this area, we will always have more purchasers and less product to sell. So this is for me, that little second that we have, little moment that we have where it actually turns into a buyer's market is very short. And I always tell people, so many years of being in the business or being somebody who has invested in real estate, I've always said that opportunity comes literally every 2 years for maybe a month or month and a half. And that's how long it stays. Even with all the foreign investor bans, whatever, the interest rate hikes, all of that, simultaneously they announced 450,000 people coming in, right? Right
Yep.
off the bat, you're looking at the next 3 years, right? And it's not even speculation. It's not today. That is not going to affect today's market. That will, however, keep affecting us it's going to have a ripple effect,
Right.
right? Over the next 5 years, it's going to affect us.
Oh, for sure. And look, new construction, and we're going to get into that a little bit more soon, but it takes time. It takes time to build a detached home. It takes a lot of time to build a condominium, right? So, you're looking at those windows. You're buying a pre-sale condo now, and it's going to be built 3 to 5 years from now, right? The value is going to go up before, most cases, the values go up. We have gone through some period of time where things that were, agreements were signed 3 to 5 years ago, and all of a sudden they were ready in 2022 in certain places, and the values went down for a period of time. And that was, sort of an unusual thing, but usually it's going the other way. But let me ask you this, Sabiha, because it's something that I've been seeing just in the last week or so, a little bit of a shift, because for a while the market was relatively quiet, through the fall and the winter, the agents that I was talking to and doing deals were always telling their clients, we should sell first and then look to buy, right? Because that's just the more conservative, prudent thing to do. All of a sudden, the last week, I've had quite a few deals come in where people have bought first, and now they bought and they've got, they got 2 months to close. So they negotiated some time. It's not like a 2-week closing or 3-week closing. They got a little bit of a longer runway to close, but they've got confidence, and their agents have confidence in the market that they're going to be able to sell during that time, and then get bridge loans if needed to, because the closing dates may not match up, but they have more confidence now in the market that there will be an ability to. So I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, but I've really noticed that, as a very recent change, and that's a
So
sign of
David,
there being more confidence.
right. So I'm on the flip side. I'm the person that these realtors, when they're giving a strategy for their clients, the best strategy for them, they come to me and ask me what they should be doing. right? And that's my job to see an overall view of what's going on in the market, because obviously I have 250 active realtors that are doing business daily under my book. So I will tell you this. This is my advice. This was my advice last summer, last spring. I was telling realtors, be careful, right? You may sell your client's property, right? But you may not, right? And we were seeing, and I think you and I also discussed this, a lot of agreements of purchase and sale with that unheard of clause before, where it was sometimes conditional to the buyers selling their own property, and
Right.
it was flying. I mean, obviously, you had to put, escape clause in there, that if
Right.
they get a better offer or whatever. But
Right.
it actually, like in all the years that I've done real estate, I had never even imagined I would tell anybody to put that clause in, and it's actually going to get accepted. That was happening last summer and even summer, and in autumn and winter. Things have changed now because what we discussed is buyers are back in the saddle. They're back to purchase. There's not enough inventory, right? So all of a sudden, if you have a home, you're going to sell it. So you can go out and purchase with a lot of confidence that surely whatever you're going to have, you should be able to sell it on a good price. And having said that, what we talked was it's a trending market. It is going towards a better market for the sellers right now, right? So if I purchase it right now, I might still get a little bit of a deal. My foot still might be in the door. If I wait for another 15, 20 days, certainly this market is going to improve, and it'll keep improving, and all of us will have a lot more business to do, because now sooner than later the sellers are going to have more confidence in selling their properties too. And what happens, if a seller is selling their property, that's also putting a buyer in the market.
That's
Very
right.
few people
That's right.
leave completely. And if realtors are smart enough and are conducting their business properly as they should be, every property that is sold should be reinvested. I was having this really interesting conversation with one of my very close friends who's been in mortgages and commercial mortgages and BMO for the last 27 years. And this is the conversation I was having is nobody should sell real estate without at least investing in two more properties, right? Your principal and a secondary property. If you're selling anything, you must make sure that you're putting at least 200 or $250,000, which is not a big amount in anything that you sell in this market, and try to invest it in a secondary property, right? Because you're going to really benefit from that in years to come. So to be honest, like any seller that's selling their house is two buyers on in the market then, or should be like that.
Right. No, and I know a lot of people, obviously, they focus on price. If I'm buying, how much am I paying? If I'm selling, I want to get this price. But what people really have put their minds to too, just as important as the price, sometimes is the timing of the transactions too, that they can coincide. So if you're buying something and you offer a seller, you know what, I'm going to give you something really close to your asking price, or maybe I'm going to give you your asking price, but I'm not really negotiating hard on that. I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to give you the closing date that you really want. And in exchange for that, I need a condition. Give me 30 days to sell my house. And here's our plan. And we got a good way of doing it. So there's a real good chance I'm going to waive the condition. And if I do, you're going to get your purchase, you're going to get your sale price that you need. You're going to get the timing that you need. Like it's not a bad negotiating tactic for people to take. And that's, what agents are doing sometimes. So you got to be creative. You got to understand where the trends are, where things are going. And that's why we have these discussions, Sabiha, on these podcasts. And, and I always learn so much from, from you, from David, as, to what's going on. And then just talking to other agents and everything. But I think we better get back to our topic a little bit here.
Yeah,
So
pre-construction.
yeah, pre-construction. So I know that, it's part of your role. Like you actually approach builders? There's a new project coming up, this one in Oakville or whatever it is. So how do you go about doing that to get your agents in there to so they can take advantage? Because sometimes they have these pre-sale opportunities, like even before they go to market, right? So maybe
Absolutely.
explain how you
Yes.
go about doing that and how you give that advantage to your agents.
Sure, David. So the key with pre-construction is a relationship with listing brokerages that are working predominantly with builders or only with builders. We have been lucky that we have had some past connections. There's a few really good groups out there. I actually just got introduced to Hearst, that is doing pre-construction for Green Park, but previously we've had a relationship with Spectrum, which Mira, who was one of, so we have a bunch of Sutton offices under our umbrella now, under Sutton Summit, but Sutton Signature, which used to be in this building that David and I are running Sutton Summit from now, Mira used to own this and was in partnership with Debbie Kosick, who is the owner for Intuition. So, and Mira became partners with Spectrum, and these are all real estate companies that are working only with developers. Some small developers, some larger developers. So it's basically just trying to go in, get a relationship going with these real estate companies, and then on seeing what product is out there, which we can make a connection with and try to sell it. I am a little bit conservative or different minded in terms of pre-construction. I don't like to go after very big projects. And I'll explain to you why. The very, very big projects out of Toronto and Mississauga are advertised and sold all over the world. So at the end of the day, what happens is they become predominantly investor projects,
Right.
meaning that they're all going to be rental units, right? I have a bit of a problem with it, right? M condos is quite a bit of a disaster. I don't know if you've come across any deals. There is so many lawsuits going on right now because there are pillars in the units that were never on in the floor plan. It's a 550 square feet unit with humongous round pillars in it, right in the bank in the middle of the living room.
Right in the middle.
Right now, people are going and suing the builder.
Hard to decorate a pillar, right?
Wrap it with, I don't know, you know. And the Absolute was like that, right? And I remember for the first time in the history of Mississauga, Toronto Realtors were selling that inventory. They were advertising it to all their clients, and there were big Toronto Realtors behind that project. And so what happened became predominantly a huge tower, or three of them all became apartment buildings, basically, right? So the condo corporation is run by whom? Is usually the residents and the
Right.
owners. If there
But it's
is
all
no,
renters.
I have no meat in the game, right? So
Right.
I'm not gonna care about it. So it's just like, and then when you look at selling it, and you're trying to, find a property for your client to move in, as a realtor, will always search up the how many leases are available in there,
Right.
because I don't want my friend moving into a predominantly rental building because I know what it's going to look like for her to move in,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's a great point. And that's one of the things that is disclosed in a status certificate. They have to give you a breakdown of how many, rental units there are in a building. And I agree with you. Like um, it's someone that wants to live there doesn't really want to be in that building if it's 75-80% renters, because the upkeep won't be the same. It'll be very transient. Renters don't take care of the place the same way that owners do. And then if you're buying even as an investment to rent it out, you're now competing with 80% of the building for tenants, right? Because everybody's, looking for tenants. So you really got to be careful, and you got to have the right agent that understands that and looks for that to give you that
Absolutely.
guidance.
Absolutely. So, and there's so many other aspects, and you can look at the pros and cons of all of them, like short-term rentals. I know Daniel's buildings on Confederation, they don't allow for short-term rentals, right? And there's pros and cons to it because short-term rentals are also very, very well kept, right? Because there's constantly professional cleaning done and all of that. Yes, sometimes you can worry about noise and stuff, but usually not because that guests can be kicked out, right? They're only guests, they're not tenants. Tenants have a lot of rights. Way too many rights.
A lot of
We are
rights.
being
Yep.
faced like this is another thing, right? We've created a monster, right? You can serve on N12, you can do a deal, it's a firm deal, and the tenant has received the N12. The date of the they're supposed to leave the unit comes in. They say, you know what?
They're not going. They don't
Good
want to
luck.
go.
I
They don't
am
want to
not
leave.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another 8 months, and so I mean, I'm not even sure if short-term rentals are so bad because beautiful buildings like Bisha or they all have they're basically hotels. They're hotel residences,
Yeah.
right? They're well
And by
kept.
short term, you're referring to like Airbnb
Airbnb or yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
type of rentals, like that type of thing. And yeah, look, if it's an Airbnb type and there's other companies doing the same thing, but they have a good management group with it, like I agree with you, like they're really checking their place out carefully, cleaning it out, getting it ready for the next the next group to
yeah,
come in. But you got to know what you're getting into. You got to know what type of building you're going
yeah.
into, right?
And if you think about it, it's like short term is only short term. So even if you have a problematic guest, they're going to stay for 2 nights and be gone.
At least they're
Whereas,
gone. Yeah.
whereas a massively rental building. So for me, I tend to stay towards not the very, blown up, overly marketed projects. And so it's easier for our realtors to get into it as well. And those builders are actually really servicing the agents because they're depending on the agents to market that project, right? So the investment is the realtors, but then they're sure that it's going to be something that is, and there's pros and cons to it. I mean, for instance, M Condos is Rogers. They had never built before, right? Where if you go with Tridel or if you go with Daniels, I mean, I sold in Tridel units last year, DuPont, downtown Toronto. It was a breeze. You go in, you choose your units, you sell it to your clients, you get paid on time. You're sure that there's going to be no amendments to the purchase and sale agreement. There's no, a lot of builders did that last 2 years where they realized, oh my gosh, the prices are going up. Let's do this. Let's send an amendment with the $70,000 or $120,000 additional, and they always give you the option you can walk away from the unit and we'll give you your deposit back, or you pay the extra $120,000. It should not be like that, you know. But you really have to be certain about who you're dealing with. As a broker of record, I have to make sure that I am going after developments that I'm kind of sure of, and builders that are very reliable, because there's a lot of it out there.
Yeah, you want to make sure your agents get paid, right? And
Yeah,
now,
that too.
now I know a lot of agents that are just in the resale market and don't want to have anything to do with new construction. And then, and the market, is humming along, so they're not really concerned with it. And all of a sudden you run into the market slows down. And so I think you get more agents interested in new construction. So what's your pitch, or how do you talk to your agents about why they should look into getting into new construction as well? It doesn't mean you have to abandon doing resale. You can do some of both. And the timing, like, people understand resale. Okay, I sell, it closes 60 days from now, I get paid as soon as it closes, right? I know when I'm going to get my commission. New construction works a little bit differently, the way they pay you. So maybe explain how that works, when they get paid, how they get paid, and what you tell the agents why they should be considering new construction.
Sure. So on one side of where you're servicing your client, and it's an investor and it's somebody who has limited amount of funds, right? Maybe I have $200,000 right now in my account, but my credit is not up there that I can actually get a mortgage right away, right? And I'm building towards it. People go through things, people go through divorces, people go through business bankruptcy or whatever. So I'm building towards this, but I want to invest and I want to invest right now that $200,000 before it's gone, right? So it's an amazing opportunity. The volatility in pre-construction is a lot less than resale, right? Today's market is very different from what it's going to be in 2 months. 2 months ago was very different from what today is. There's very quick volatility. Long term, real estate is standard. It's established. It's going to do well because of all the points that we know. But in terms of what happens today and what happens a month or 2 months, pre-construction is based on what the price will be, a speculated price in 2 years, right? Having said that, the person's affordability might change in 2 years, but I can prepare for the closing in 2 years. I have a lot of time, to put all the I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed so that I'm able to close it in 2 years. That's one point. Number two is it's hard for a brand new realtor to base their business fully on pre-construction because some buildings won't be ready in 7 years or 5 years, right? A lot of builders will not pay. Only three or four very big builders will pay so how the payment of commission comes in is 1% usually within the first year, then another percent, and then 2% in closing. The big builders will pay that 1% to the brokerage, and we have no problem, we'll pay it out, right? Smaller builders, and that's 90% of them, have something called a holdback clause or a claw clause, right? Which is you are paid, the brokerage is sent the commission. However, if the client does not close the unit, that commission is taken back. It is too much of a responsibility on my hands for my business and my brokerage in general to be secure to let that money go to the realtor, right? What if the realtor's gone and the client's gone and we lose that commission because we have to pay back the builder, right? So that's another thing too. Like, I mean, and certain builders have very deep pockets and they have no problems giving out that money and not having a claw clause. Also, sometimes those builders have larger deposits that the clients are paying, right? Smaller builders want to make it very attractive, so they will say 5% down, 5% in another half a year, 5%, and in 15% you can go on till the closing date, which might be 3 or 4 years, and your initial deposit is only 15%. Bigger builders usually take at least 20%, if not more, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's all about that, and it's a great product to be part of your portfolio. To work only as a pre-construction a realtor, I think you have to be in the market for a good 5 years to put all your of business into pre-construction. I think that's a prudent way of thinking because then you have paybacks coming in, that 5 year periods happen and you start having a regular income coming in. But very hard for a brand new realtor to fully focus on pre-construction and not have any resale at all in their binder.
Yeah, no, that's great advice because like that's the key. You got to get through the first 5 years because every year you're going to start to earn some income. But the first time, if you're doing deals now, it might be not for 3 to 5 years from now. But if you keep doing it, then every year you will have closings, and from the previous years. And we're no different in our office. Like we always look to have an inventory of pre-construction, down the road. So we're reviewing agreement of purchase and sale. We're negotiating changes to it. We charge a fee for doing that, which we usually get paid more often than not, we're getting paid to do that now for reviewing it now, but we're not closing the deal for 3 to 5 years. So it's in our inventory down the road. So if we were doing nothing but that, and you got to sit around for 5 years waiting to get paid, it doesn't work. But so you want that in your inventory for down the road. But in the meantime, especially for a realtor, during that 5-year period, if you're starting out, you can't just do new construction. But for anybody else that is already doing resale, like, why not do some new construction? Okay, you may not get money in 2023 from it, but you've got an inventory you're going to get paid in 2027 or 2028. You're going to have that revenue coming in then, in addition to whatever you're doing between now and then, right?
Yeah,
So if you
yeah,
just
and it's
keep
a great,
doing it,
right. It's a great product for your clients as well, even investors, right? Like they just put in the deposit. They don't have to worry about a mortgage going in for the next 3 years, 4 years. The value keeps increasing, and you're comfortably sitting on your investment, and I mean it pays off.
right,
On the other side of it, between you and I, which is very important, is for realtors to actually understand that they don't have to go blindfolded with their clients and just sign on the dotted line, right? They get a
right,
daunting, huge, big package. And whenever I'm training my realtors, I tell them, ask about whether that property can be leased through occupancy period or not, if the levies and taxes are capped or not. So many different, can you sell on assignment? Is there an assignment fee associated with it or not? What is the assignment fee? Are you able to advertise that assignment or not? Very, very important for realtors to be well trained, well educated before just taking your clients and say, just sign here, right? Because then afterwards, in the next 5 years, to retain the client will be very, very hard because they're going to be burnt. You can get burnt with these pre-constructions. And to have the right lawyers, like the DuPont deal I was telling you about, your firm obviously represented my client. I say obviously because that's what happens with most of my friends, my family who actually ask for my advice. And the
right,
levies and taxes were not capped, right?
right.
And I brought that up to the sales lady who I always deal with, and this is Tridel. This is Tridel. And she said, no problem. We're going to send an amendment and we will have the levies and taxes capped. Had I not asked, it would not have happened, right? And as I was talking to her, I'd already sent the agreement of purchase and sale in that 10-day cooling period for review. It was right there in the documents that came from your firm. Are the levies and taxes capped or not? So very, very important for realtors to understand and clients to understand that just walking into clients also think that we're going to walk into a builder's office. We don't even need a realtor. We know everything. It's not like that. It is like any other real estate deal. And, people need to make sure that in that first 10-day cooling period, they've already retained a lawyer. I have come across deals like this too, David. It was actually 188 Cumberland. One of my very good friends had gone in, bought 3 units there, not with me. PDI came in, they called me. That was 3 years ago or close to 4 years ago. It was my daughter's first day at uni when we had to go in for orientation. I get a call from these friends of mine from Singapore. They're panicked and they're saying, PDI has come. We have no idea where a realtor is. We have no lawyer. We have nothing. I called up your partner, Jonathan, on his cell phone and I said, Jonathan, I need to help these people out. They're not my clients, but we got to do this for them. God knows how we stood upside down and inside out. This is the day before they're getting their hands on this unit. They delayed on their checks because they didn't have a lawyer. So people have to understand how important it is to go in fully guarded in a pre-construction with a good realtor and a lawyer right up at front in the 10-day cooling period, right? Don't
Yeah.
wait for occupancy or any of that to come in, guys. Like, first things first, get the lawyer and your realtor backing you in it, and people that actually know what they're doing, right?
Yeah, that's so important, Sabiha. And I disagree with you on one point. You said it's like any other real estate transaction. New construction is way more difficult than resale.
Absolutely.
There are
Absolutely.
so many more issues, and the agents have to understand what they're up against. You mentioned one big topic, which is the right to assign, but there's so many other topics. And I think the key thing and the key advice that any agent should be giving, and I know you guys do it, you and David are great, and everybody at your office, because you're on top of it, is that they should be getting it to a lawyer to review. And even if you're an agent that's totally comfortable and you understand it and everything, and you're helping them negotiate, it should still be reviewed by a lawyer, okay, and get the backing of a lawyer. And what some people don't understand, you mentioned a couple times this 10-day cooling off period. Some real estate agents out there and some of the general buyers that are buying project don't realize that that only exists for condominiums. There's no such thing as a 10-day cooling off period if they're buying a detached house or a freehold townhome. Okay.
Yeah.
There's no 10-day cooling off period. So if you're negotiating that type of real estate purchase, you have to negotiate a condition that's conditional on
It's
lawyer
review.
review.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have no right to get it reviewed. You have no way of getting out. Okay. So I'm seeing so many people making that mistake. Okay. So when you do have a condominium, if it is a condominium, there is a statutory 10-day cooling off period. So you've got that 10 days to get it to a lawyer to review. It's not designed, well, I can change my mind in the 10 days. Yes, you can. Okay. But you want to change your mind or not change your mind based on making an informed decision. So you want to review with your real estate agent. You also should get it reviewed by a lawyer, because we might catch certain things or point out certain things or just explain it in a different way to clients. And then they make an informed decision before the 10 days are up. Do I want to go ahead? Do I not want to go ahead? And during that 10 days, we're writing a letter to the lawyer acting for the builder saying we reviewed the agreement and we want to delete this. We want to delete that. We want to cap this cost. We want to delete this cost. Like we charge a fee of, I don't know, $380, something like that to review it. But we could be saving them thousands of dollars in that
Absolutely.
negotiation process, right up front. So it's crucial that it be reviewed by a lawyer in a timely fashion. And that's just, we're looking for some of those adjustments because, as you know, Sabiha, there's all kinds of adjustments that builders pass on. So it's not just the purchase price. Oh, I like the purchase price. I'm getting this condo. Yeah, but are you aware from all these adjustments, it might cost you an extra 20, 30, 40, $50,000 potentially, aside from any upgrades that you want to do. Okay, because that's in the fine
100%.
print. So now,
Yeah.
if there are that many adjustments, can you still afford it? Can you still get your mortgage? Right. So any buyer has to be informed of these things and understand these things. So that's part of our role together with the agent to make sure we review it properly and go through it. And then we get into issues like you're talking about right to assign it. Every
Mhm.
agreement of purchase sale has an assignment clause. Most of
Mhm.
them say you have no right to assign. And if you do assign it, it's subject to the builder's consent. And if we will consent, it's on these 12 conditions, right? And we got to look at those very carefully to see, when can you assign, how can you assign, what you do. You can assign it. Most of them say you can assign it, but you can't market it. You can't put it on a multiple listing service. So, so there's all kinds of issues that come up with assignments as well.
Right. And if you can't assign it and you can't lease it, and the occupancy period is going on for 3 years, and you have no intentions of moving in, then it's not a good development to go in as an investor at all, because you're going
Right.
to be pocketing that occupancy fee for the next 3 years out of pocket, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so you have to be very careful as to who you're selling what to. Might work perfectly for an end user, right? But not for someone who's going into it as an investor. So, I mean, it's like that, buyers need to understand that it's not a simple thing. It looks really good. Builders' offices and developers' offices are very nicely set up. They're very pleasant looking, pleasantly speaking people, articulate, making you sign documents, but don't go in without your lawyer and don't go in without your realtor to sign anything in there.
Yep. Now I can tell you, one advantage one big advantage of using a real estate agent like you or someone from your office to go into a new construction project versus just showing up on your own as a buyer is when projects start, there's usually like, I don't think they call it like, I don't know, a pre-sale or like opportunity that they give to brokerages like yours when you've pre-negotiated an opportunity to get in there. And sometimes there's a period of time where they're going to allow people to come in with their real estate agent for a limited amount of the inventory. And if you're buying during that period, aside from you might be getting a better price than people buying after you, but sometimes they'll allow some of those buyers who they know are investors to get a more favorable assignment clause. Okay. And the reason they do that is they want to kick off the project and they want to get a whole number of sales under their belt. They want to get that first 10% sold like really quickly. So
Right.
sometimes they do this pre-sale that's available to family and friends or to brokerages to bring in their clients for a limited period of time for a certain amount of inventory. And then they start going to the general public. And once it goes to the general public, some of those incentives are all of a sudden disappear. You don't get the favorable assignment clause. You don't get certain costs capped, things like that. So I think it's anybody that's looking to invest or to buy themselves in new construction, it's worth going to someone like you that has arrangements with projects that get you in the early stages, because there are advantages to your deal aside from price. And I'm always telling you, you can't just focus on price. But I know how these things work in any sales office. As soon
Yeah,
as they sell some, the price goes up for equivalent units. As they're
absolutely.
selling, the price keeps going up, like, and they'd sell it in phases or in stages, right? And as soon as they sell out a phase, equivalent units that they're now releasing the price has gone
Higher
up on,
price, week to week, absolutely. Week to
right?
week, it's different, and whatever their offerings are, sometimes they're offering upgrades of whatever X amount of dollars included in the
Right,
first launch, and so on and so forth. So the tiers are working like that, right? Like at
right,
the more, yeah, the closer you are to the launch, the or pre-launch or VIP event or platinum event, whatever they may call it, the more beneficial it is for you to go into that project. Absolutely.
right. And those incentives all change. Whether it's the price or whether it's doing certain caps on adjustments or deleting certain adjustments altogether, or the type of language that they'll give you on assignment rights or leasing rights. It changes as the project gets sold, right? Like initially they want to get it off the ground, they're more favorable. Then all of a sudden, if there's real interest and everything is selling, all of a sudden the price goes up and the incentives go away. They start
Mhm,
disappearing.
mhm.
And then if they get to the tail end, if it slows down again and they're only have a little bit of inventory, you might get an increase in incentives again. So when we review an agreement on a project, we're always reviewing and asking for everything, like all the deletions that we want, all the caps that we want, all the favorable assignment language. And sometimes the answer we get back is no, 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 no. But if you don't ask, you never get, right? And sometimes it just depends where they are in the marketing of that particular project. At one point they're saying no, and then all of a sudden there might be a lull, and all of a sudden they're saying, yeah, you know what, we're going to give you an assignment clause, or we're going to cap certain costs, right? Because it's and then all of a sudden they get a flurry of activity, and then you're back to no, 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 no,
Oh,
no, we're not doing
absolutely.
it.
I've seen so much of this happen, right? Where like I said, like there's actually that you have to, it's a ballot. You have to put your name in and you may or may not get your unit, and they will absolutely not deal with a realtor because they're in charge. And they know that people will sign wherever they want them to sign. It's also, I feel like, the customer needs to be a little bit aware of this, right? If they insist that we are not going to go in and we are going to not going to sign any document without being represented, right? This is a little bit of a problem, right? Because I have seen so many of my friends being faced with this and come to me afterward the fact, and I'm like, I don't know what to do for you at this point, right? You've already signed the documents. You don't, you know, 3 years later, you don't even have a lawyer representing you because nobody told you that you should have a lawyer review these documents. There was nobody really, looking out for your interests. So, like I think purchasers should be aware that they should just not walk into builders' offices and just sign up wherever.
Yeah, and I'll give, two easy examples in addition to what we've talked about, the issues that come up on new construction that you don't really have to pay attention to on resale. And one is HST and the HST rebate that may or may not be applicable depending on their fact situation. And the other is, you talked about the deposits, and deposits are insured up to certain amounts depending on the timing of the project and depending on the type of project, whether it's a condominium or a non-condominium, different amounts are insured. So, and people have to be very careful, like who are they making their deposit checks to? Are they making it to the builders themselves, or are they making it to the builder's lawyer where it goes into a trust account in compliance with the Condominium Act? So that's something that we review when we review agreements to purchase and sell. And people have to be very careful because we've all heard stories. We know there are certain projects that fall apart 3 years, 5 years later as builders don't get them developed. They can't get the funding. They go bankrupt, this and that. They all make the news. And some people are left holding the bag. They can't get their deposit money back because they didn't use a real estate agent to guide them. They didn't have it reviewed by a lawyer, and they gave the money, their deposit money, to the builder instead of making sure it went to the builder's lawyer and there was in trust with proper certificates issued that the money's there and protected, so they can't get their money back. So we don't want any of our clients to experience that type. Hopefully they invest in projects that are going to be completed and they're going to live there, etc. But you want to make sure, just in case, because you never know what's going to happen 3 years, 5 years down the road. You want to make sure you're protected. So that's just a couple other examples of why you should have a proper real estate agent helping you in new construction, why you should have a lawyer involved from day one to make sure you've got that type of protection.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Wonderful.
Sabiha, you never think we have enough to talk about in an hour, right, on this podcast.
And then we were like, oh,
it flies by. We barely scratched the surface. We'll have to continue at
exactly.
another time.
This is true. This is true. Lovely session. Amazing seeing you on Zoom, and everybody, thank you for listening in.
And thank you. And Sabiha, I know you're doing great work there and getting, you got a large group at Sutton Summit, 250 agents there. And the fact that you're encouraging them and pushing them and helping them to get into these new construction projects is a great thing. And everybody should be doing it like we talked about. Get it into your inventory. It'll start paying off 3, 4, 5 years from now. And why not? Like, it's a great opportunity. Just make sure you do it the right way. Use Sabiha's guidance, use David's guidance. Make sure you have a lawyer. We're always open for anybody to come in, and we'll assist you with it at our end as well. So, but thank you,
Absolutely.
Sabiha, for doing such a great job pinch hitting for David today. Always a pleasure to have
My
you
pleasure.
on.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.